The GA Hour with Colm Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
And when I started running, I suppose I didn't stop, and when I got the chance to go, I said I should go, and so I opened up.
We're only the small little fish out there, so we are, and we're trying hard to make it through. But it's hard to get the breaks when you're the smaller fish.
Because I love this county so much, and it's just, I'm delighted that the lads did it for the people of Waterford today, because I'm heartbroken.
A PR disaster, lads. Another GAA PR disaster is how this has been described. So there's only one place to start, and that's Naomh Colmcille club in Donegal, who were hit with a 2-month suspension. It was the minimum suspension that they could have got. It's a proposed suspension. They allowed one of their pitches be used for a fundraising event, which was a soccer tournament. And it's for one of their club members and coaches, Paul Dillon, who was diagnosed with motor neuron disease. So I don't know what to think about this. They asked for permission, got denied permission, went ahead anyways. So on the surface of it, I'm looking at the organising committee and I'm having very little sympathy for them. I'm having little sympathy for the club because they allowed this to be played without having permission. Now, you can say the rules are a load of nonsense, you can say whatever. The fact of the matter is there are rules there, and that's it. And they ignored the rules and they've got a ban. So on the surface of that, it's hard to feel too much sympathy. And then you dig down into it a little bit, and there's loads of different factors on this. And the second pitch that they played on used to be the parish's soccer pitch. And the GA are leasing it from the local parish or something. And local people still call it the soccer pitch. And the first pitch was being used by the GA ground. The club are saying they leased it to the event, or they allowed the event organised. They didn't hold the event themselves. They just allowed the organising committee hold the event. They played a bit of soccer. It was for a great cause. It was community spirit. There isn't another soccer pitch nearby. Now I'm thinking it's a little bit loud. Number one, it's a complete weasel that squealed on them.
Yeah.
Number two, I'm having more sympathy. Apparently, he was a big GA man, but his circle of friends who would have organised this tournament would have been more soccer based, and he would have been soccer as well. And it was more natural in his circle of friends to hold a soccer tournament, do you know what I mean, than a Gaelic football one. Because I was thinking, if this is a fundraiser, why play soccer? Why not play 7-a-side Gaelic football? Why not have a long kick competition? Why not have there's a whole lot of fundraising ideas. So I don't know what to think of it, lads. I've gone from the side of thinking they deserve their ban to thinking, Jesus, there's a little bit more to this. If it's the local soccer pitch, really, you know, I think maybe they might get off this ban.
It's such a tiny area as well, Newton Cunningham, where Naomh Colmcille is.
Yeah.
So, you have Derry, you have Burt, and then it's like a road out to Letterkenny, and you wouldn't even know that you passed that area along the way. It's just on the side of the road, and yeah, there wouldn't be a lot of facilities there, and big soccer areas as well. So obviously that was the best way of bringing in more people to play in the tournament, and obviously raise more funds. But I think probably why they might get off it as well is that some of the punishments over the years from the GA have been inconsistent. So what was it? They gave Nemo Rangers a warning back in 2010. Remember, they had been leasing out their grounds for soccer training, and then that club in Longford got a fine, but their senior team wasn't, missing games or anything like that. So the punishments have been sort of inconsistent. And the only other thing as well that I think, and it's a really important point, is that there's 5-a-side games going on in GA grounds all around the country every day.
I was about to say
on floodlit AstroTurf.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, did they kind of did they cause trouble for themselves by asking for permission in the first place? Because when I saw this story first, I was thinking, well, I've played at soccer tournaments on GA grounds. I'm not going to name clubs, obviously, but I have, and
Kilshima, anyways.
Can I just state with absolute clarity that Kilshima was not the club.
Kilshima chairman is pulling his hair out here.
But no, I've played soccer tournaments on GA grounds, and I didn't think it was I thought it was long as a club organised thing, that it didn't necessarily have to go through the GA. Obviously it did. So I'm just wondering whether, because the request was made, that somebody might have said, listen, keep an eye on these guys, they put in a request for this tournament to take place on this day, let's see, did they go ahead and do it anyway, and then decide to clamp down on it. It just, I know, I get where you're coming from with the kind of, they did contravene the rules and stuff like this, but I just think it looks terrible. Just with, it was like, it was a great day out for like a very worthy cause, a guy that's much loved in the community, and then for like all that's come out of it since is the GAA looking terrible for imposing a 8-week ban on the club as a result.
Yeah, I think, like, I mean, Paul Dillon has said, who's the fella who obviously the fundraiser was for, he said, whoever reported this, I'd like them to come and see how I get through everyday life, which is a great point. Like, what a troublemaker would do that. Anyways, a bunch of lads I've run about with all my life decided to come together and raise money so the home could be made wheelchair accessible. The pitch it was played on, it was the local soccer pitch. The GAA have it leased, but it is the parish grounds as well. So, like, I mean, it is a bit rich if the GAA is leasing this from the parish grounds to be... Like, I'm more on the opinion that this will be just brushed. But another thing, and you said that soccer tournaments, it's different if... I don't want to see soccer tournaments played on GAA grounds. Maybe I'm being a bit old-fashioned and not progressive enough, but I think there a lot of, maybe in a small parish like that it's different, but I know in Portlaoise there'd be fellas in the soccer club who would hate the GAA, and in Dublin even more so, and they think then, like, you have Damien Duff and these fellas coming out to Liam Miller and they're running the GAA down because all of our facilities are like the envy of the professional codes. The rugby and soccer had to hire out Croke Park, and it's the same all over. All these fundraisers are fine, but there's fundraisers every weekend for different things. Where does it stop? I do think the GAA, I have a little bit, like, if the rule is there, what are you going to, because there's good causes all the time, so do you have the local soccer club holding events once the cause is good? The GAA have to just say, well, Jesus, it's a cause, here, open our doors, here you go, play a soccer tournament with a crowd of fellas who hate us and have no interest in GAA. So do you get my point? Where does it stop?
You're right. The rule is there. I don't personally like it. I think the rule is old-fashioned. I think it's like sort of there. Just it seems a bit anti-English. It's like very old. Just, no soccer being played here, no foreign sports. But
even regardless of the English thing, it's a serious competitor. Why are you going to allow your competitor use your grounds? Like, it's taking your players from the community. Don't think we would ask to one of our competitors, come on in, use our studio, lads.
And a lot of these clubs, you're all playing soccer and stuff as well. Like, there's a lot of
I do think in small communities, yes, because it's a huge crossover. But in bigger towns, and especially in Dublin, it's not that case. Like, I mean, there's clear kind of segregation almost between the soccer heads and the GAA heads, and they wouldn't necessarily play each other's sports.
It might sound like kind of small details in the general scheme of things, but the amount of admin and effort that has to go into these fundraisers when you're talking about insurance and stuff like that the GAA also has to worry about. So there's that to take into account as well. But I do think in this case it was because these facilities were the best equipped for what they wanted to do at the time. So, but I absolutely take your point, like your wider point about the GAA just being expected to open its arms to all comers, that's not fair on the GAA. Like.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So Dorina Friel, she's a former chairman of the Naomh Colmcille club, and she said, we did not host the actual tournament. It was the fundraising committee that came and asked us for the facility. We didn't have anything else in the parish that would accommodate such a big turnout of people. For the health and safety and well-being of people, we offered the facility and offered the clubhouse for making tea and sandwiches. I think that's enough there. I think that's the end of that. Like, I've been to Newton. I actually saw Newtown written down in the reports, and I know Newton from knowing Brendan of Anywell, I've been there with him, and I just went, Newtown? Is this the same place? I know, but geez, the Newton boys are sound like, I mean, so listen, I'm totally on the Newton side of it now. So let them off the ban. And this was definitely a kind of a one-off thing where the pitch number 2 was the soccer bloody pitch.
Yeah.
Come on now, if you're leasing it off the parish, and the parish want to use it, and now you're going to ban them for using it. No, I'm completely on Newton's side now. Since Devaney reminded me that it's Newtown is Newton, that's it. So now, just following on from this story, so Damien Comer has been in the news this week. I think he was at a Connacht football launch, and he's not back till June. He has had a very slow recovery from his foot injury that he sustained playing soccer. Playing soccer on Stevens' Day.
Was that game authorised by the GAA? That's what I want to know.
Well, this is the thing. Well, to be honest, in Portlaoise, Portlaoise football team always have a soccer five-a-side mini tournament on
Where?
Stevens' Day down in the local town hall AstroTurf pitch. They don't have it on. I've never seen soccer outside. Mick O'Dwyer used to be a great fan of playing. He didn't call it soccer. He called it ground football. So on a Monday after a match, say if we've won a match and you're there on a Monday or Tuesday, he might play ground football for the first 20 minutes.
We used to do that too, to the extent that you'd be disappointed if you turned up at training on a Monday and there wasn't.
And there wasn't ground football, yeah. So we were like, you'd be kind of disgruntled if there wasn't ground football. And Shermicko wouldn't have the first notion of the ground football. And it'd be amazing, like you'd have Beano MacDonald, who one of the most skillful, best Gaelic footballers you'll ever see, dummy solos off both feet. And the man can't play soccer to save his life. Isn't it weird? Like, I mean, it just certain fellas. But yeah, he fractured a bone in his foot in a charity soccer game on St. Stephen's Day and hasn't featured for the county team at all this year. So, like, I mean, he's a huge loss. And I think Conor, he might get back for the Connacht final, but maybe not. But, like, I mean, what kind of shape is he in, especially with a broken bone in his foot? So he hasn't been able to run for a long, long time. So that's fantastic news from Mayo point of view.
Absolutely, yeah. I do hope he gets back to himself, but not until after that. I'm just like, I'm surprised he kind of revealed. This is the first I heard that Damien Comer had actually broken his foot in a soccer game.
Kept it quiet, all right.
So I was surprised that he revealed it for a start, and second of all, I don't think Damien Comer will be playing in that charity game come Stephen's Day next year.
Yeah, well, who was it? Rory McIlroy, didn't he do his? He went over his ankle in a five-a-side. This is soccer, lads. Just stay away from this. It's dangerous.
I don't think he's played five-a-side since.
It's like a Me Too movement here. GA players coming out of the woodwork and owning up to their soccer playing.
Yeah, soccer bloody injuries. But anyways, that's it. So, James Horan on that Connacht final, potential Connacht final, because I was thinking of live shows earlier today, and I think if Galway play Mayo in the Connacht final, it would be crazy not to do some sort of a live show in around that. But James Horan has been in the press because he was at that same the same launch as Damien Comer, and he was talking about commitment for players, and this is a pet peeve of mine, and usually I love James Horan and I'm usually complete agreement with what he says, but he's talking about players loving what they do, and this idea that there's too much commitment involved is a load of nonsense. And he says, I know young swimmers in Castlebar that are spending more time in the pool than inter-county players are on the field. I know an amount of track cyclists, middle-aged men who are spending more time on their bikes and no one knows or cares that they're doing it. I have never bought into that. You ask any player, they love what they're doing. It's sacrifice is the wrongest word going. I think it's important that their work-life balance integration is right. That's fair enough, but I always talk about individual sports versus team sports. So there's 30 fellas on a team sport with all different varying levels of commitment or how much sacrifice it takes, where the first 10 might think this is bloody easy, I love living my life this way. The second 10 might go, this is tough enough, but I'm able to do it and I'm living okay. And then the last 10 might go, I'm finding this hard, I'm well good enough to be on the team even, but I find a struggle to commute, the family life, all those things, I find that really difficult. And in team sport, you have a training session at a certain time. Like I see now in the evenings with the two children and Portlaoise are training, and it doesn't suit me to go in the evenings because I'm only landed home from work and Itzy's had them all day. Whereas I like to go to the gym in the mornings and get that done. It's on my own time. So I'm happy to train just when I want to. So for an individual, it's such a, and I have heard Ciara McGeaney saying the same thing. It's you can't compare a team level sport with 30 different fellas to some bloody middle-aged man who likes to go out on his bike whenever he wants or every evening. Like, I mean, he's in one of the 10 that finds that commitment easy.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when you do sort of, when it's winter or you've taken a year out or whatever, how much work that you are willing to do then? You think you're sick of all the training, but it's actually not. It's just having your own time back. Like, and you end up doing more work. You go to the gym, you go out and kick the ball, you do runs even. But you're doing it on your own time, and it's not somebody saying you have to be here at this time ready to go out, and then like giving you all the information in the world, texting you, going to video sessions even at club level. Like, there is just such a big commitment, and it is that idea that it is on somebody else's time, which makes it the hardest.
Yeah, so I think arguing that it's not a sacrifice, I don't know. Anyways, listen, we'll leave James Horan. Anything to say to that, or you don't want to go up against the manager after winning the league?
No, I just think his wider point about work-life balance, I think is,
and he's very good on that.
And he is very good, and to be honest, all the all what you hear coming out of the Mayo camp, whether it's from what's on the ground in Mayo, or even Lee Keegan was talking about it publicly last week, and even the Mayo squad's attitude to drink bans and stuff like that, the Mayo camp does seem like a particularly enjoyable camp to be in, and I'd say that's a lot down to the fact that James Horan has such an emphasis on getting the work-life balance right.
I think that's it, and I think it maybe 2 years ago, was it, there was such a focus on codes of conduct and all these came out. I think it's almost shamed managers into it, you know what I mean? It's like I think managers are doing the right thing now, and I think that culture is kind of changing for the better, and especially with Lee Keegan and James Horan and these fellas saying things like that does absolutely no harm. So the CPA have released a statement, and it was Micheál Brodie and his secretary Michael Higgins detailed their frustration, and they were calling on club players to stand up for your club against continued inaction. So they said, we have stated since the start of this process that it's not who is right, but it's not who is right, but what is right. We know now that what we're saying is right because we have kept the fixtures issue on the agenda. Everyone agrees it is a problem that needs to be solved. Whether they like us or not for saying that is irrelevant. That's the GAA. We cannot say with certainty that we're being listened to at management level, but we know players are listening. So we're now looking for action and not words. As GAA members, we already know what we are, but we also know what we could be if our leadership can find the courage, the will and the foresight to move decisively on fixtures. The proposed fixtures, this is the important part, the proposed fixtures group properly constituted presents an opportunity for a real lasting legacy beyond a new manifesto published and promoted at a cost to the GAA. So they are talking about meeting the GAA. A proposed fixtures group was supposed to be set up. Nothing has happened on it. It's just been forgotten about, and the CPA, I've said this all along, sure, the CPA haven't made really much difference so far. I agree with everything they want to do. I didn't agree recently when they when they opposed the Cork motion of giving club players a few matches during the summer. It's so obvious that a fixtures group needs to be set up to fix the fixtures. Why GA management don't seem to want to do that, I don't know. Why they don't want to let the different players' bodies in to try and help it when everybody's very, very clear to every logical thinker that it needs to be fixed. So I don't know what their next move is.
I just wonder, what did the CPA want to do when they say, you know, they're calling on the club members to kind of stand up and be counted, whatever? Like, is it because they've gone down a diplomatic route from the start, and they seem to be they're not advocating for strike action. They don't want the militant approach either. But what they seem to want is what they want club players to. What the only way they can really influence it is by attending executive meetings and suggesting that motions be put forward at county board level. The problem is that you're dealing with, I think a lot of club players are happy to kind of tell their stories about like horrible fixture arrangements and stuff like that. What they're not so willing to do is actually go out and attend these meetings, and actually that's the only way they can do it. But like, with all due respect to the CPA, I think they're banging their head against the wall to a certain extent.
But they went to these meetings. Whether they went to these meetings, they got motions to Congress and they were laughed at.
Yeah,
they've had no success. They are
called that crowd.
Yeah, that crowd. So what their next move is, I don't know, because I think if there was a strike, I think the GA would see it out. I think clubs would eventually fold. There's no financial pressure on the GA. It's embarrassing to them, but is it enough? You know, like, and their membership is big, but it's not big compared to all the club players that are out there. And if you've got teams in a county competing and other teams with the majority of it's very, a strike for the CPA is very, very messy, and I don't see how it can be successful. I've always said it, and I continue to say it, unless they get the GPA on board, who are club players too. What are they doing? Why are they not joining up with the GPA, who are the cash cow? Why are they not creating an alliance there? Like, I mean, there's a huge vacuum since the GPA have jumped ship into more of a player welfare body. Sign up all their players as CPA members and use them. That'll soon change things. I'm not sure they're doing that.
The biggest worry for the CPA is that, you know, they can't strike because GA players are resilient. They put up with a lot of shit, and then they get on with it and get ready for the next game, because that's what they have to do, get ready for the next game. And they do get a lot of games in there, but their biggest problem is that there are spikes of anger, and it'll happen again. It'll probably happen in the summer when a county says that no more club games are happening or whatever, you know, and then we'll all be angry again.
And then you move on.
Yeah, it dissolves
and
again.
then your championship starts.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
you're in,
you forget about it.
You know, you forget about it.
We fall in love with it again.
And we're so used to it. it.
Yeah.
You don't know any better. You don't know what it's like to play across the summer without any breaks or any county doing well and you getting screwed over. It's been going on since I've started playing.
Yeah.
Club games are getting called off for the Laois Minors back in 96.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, that's the reality of it. Like, this isn't a new phenomenon. So, like, I mean, Jesus, it would be great to get it fixed, but it will never get fixed. CPA, while absolutely brilliant, don't have the clout. GPA have the clout, but don't have the will anymore because they're receiving funding. So, you know, maybe an amalgamation of the two players' unions, and suddenly you have a representation of so much more, and then you can make a stand. That's probably all there is to say about that.
Testify, will he?
Yeah. Kalin Sexton has dropped off the Clare panel. So he's the first one this year, unless I've missed any, lads. I was on holidays last week. Every year now, because of the new rule, there's players leaving before the championship starts. Hard to disagree with Kalin Sexton. Very unlucky for Clare. He is a very good player. He actually got their last minute goal to keep them up in Division 2. A guaranteed starter on their team.
Is he?
I think he's a guaranteed starter, yeah. He's a guaranteed starter at full forward, probably.
Such a good
Or
forward
centre
line, you know.
Yeah.
Gary Brennan with number 14 on him sort of takes up a position as well.
Brennan's midfield.
No, I know, but like it just takes up another position.
You're just going to stick Gary Brennan in there so Kalin Sexton doesn't get on it. So to disprove me saying he's a guaranteed starter.
I saw a team sheet very temporarily and he wasn't on it.
So, I know Sexton, he has been a guaranteed starter since he made his debut anyways. He's been on it all the time. But I can't blame him because Clare have been screwed again this year with Kerry in a semi-final. So it's incredible how many times they've drawn Kerry in a semi-final. And sure, he just knows his after that draw, his season's mapped out. He's played the league, they've stayed up, right? All games they've had a chance of winning, you know, relatively. Now they play the championship, they'll win the first round, then they play Kerry, they'll get beaten well. And then they'll be back in the qualifiers, and it's just the same groundhog season. You know what I mean? So he's got a chance to go to America.
Isn't it terrible though that somebody can look at realistically look at their season so coldly, and that like she'll be looking ahead to a summer of like a great championship and thinking, well, to be honest, we're going to lose to Kerry anyway, so I'm just going to go to the States for the summer. I mean, like I can't blame him either. But it's just a very bleak outlook. When you're
welcome to the Leinster Championship.
I know. Sorry.
Just because you've got that great competition going on over there now with Roscommon, Mayo and Galway. This is well used to it. Like how
I know.
Like only that there's a little mini league in Leinster for the best of the rest to keep it some bit interesting. There isn't that in Munster. There's a serious competition, I think, in Leinster of best of the rest with Meath, Kildare, Laois, Westmeath, Offaly, Carlow. Like I mean, and a lot of them are on the other side with Kildare and Dublin on one side. So like I think players in Leinster will probably still, anyone on the other side to Dublin wouldn't have that same motivation to leave. It'd be nice to get into a Leinster final. But it's hard to disagree with Kalin for heading off there. Quick result there, I just noticed Castleknock beat St Vincent's last night 3-8 to 14 points. They got 2 late goals to beat them. Diarmuid Connolly still at centre back. So whether that, I look through the Vincent's team and they don't look the same force as they did. They must be missing a few different fellas with injuries or whatever, but it's still a group phase, so Vincent's aren't out, but I'm not sure Vincent's might be on the slide from the incredible force they were maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Just thought I'd mention that because I thought it was interesting. But Trevor Giles is in the media this week, lads, and he came up with some of the weirdest logic I've ever come across. Again, always disappointed when a legend that you love talks absolute nonsense, because you have to pull them up on it and you don't feel any bit right about doing it. So it would break my heart to know Trevor Giles is listening to what I'm going to say here now.
You don't have to say it, well.
So he was asked about Dublin and their dominance or whatever. So he says, have Dublin come back a little bit? Maybe other teams have moved on. We just haven't seen that in other years. Dublin losing 3 league games. Look at Conor Callaghan losing a Sigerson semi-final. Look at Paul Mannion and Keane Sullivan losing a Leinster club final. So some Dublin players are starting to experience defeat. We're completely different teams in completely different competitions. What is that meant to mean? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever read. So Conor Callaghan losing a Sigerson semi-final.
How many players from other counties are on that team?
So everyone on that panel has also suffered that defeat. And then you have a club match last December, which could potentially derail this 5 in a row. Like, you really are... you know, everybody wants Leinster football to stop Dublin dominance, but you're stretching it there, Trevor. That is tenuous at the best.
He started off well. Have Dublin come back a little bit? All right, Trevor, you're onto something here.
I'm listening. Yeah. It's good. I find myself looking up the Leinster Club Championship and noticing Vincent's didn't win last year, and I said, what am I doing? Why am I going along with this?
Strangest thing Trevor Doyles has done since he cut the sleeves of his jersey that time.
Oh, well, I love that. I used to roll mine up.
Did
just
you do
like
it?
him.
A lot of people copycat.
I rolled it up. I like Jesus. If I cut it, the Laois County Board would absolutely kill me. So you have to have Trevor Giles' level of clout to be able to cut a jersey, because it can't be used again.
Did you have Trevor Giles' farmer's tan as well to go along with it?
I think I had a decent tan.
Okay.
No, I would never just have the farmer's tan. Did he have the farmer's tan?
Oh,
the
worst case of farmer's tan. Yeah,
fair.
Pats Fallan-esque.
Did you have the arms? They roll your sleeves up. Like, I wouldn't do it unless you had.
I wouldn't have really. That's skinny arms, but when you've really skinny arms, you've got muscle, right? Because you only have muscle. You have nothing else. So you look like you're toned, but you're just scrawny, right? Right. So anyway, Conor McGill, the Meath fullback, following on from this, was in the media this week, right? And he just, in pure GAA stereotypical interview answer style, he is just excelling himself. So he's asked about the Leinster Championship, or he's asked about the Super 8s first, and he comes back with, you can't look past the first round. He says, if you look past the first round to see who you might be playing the next day, you get caught out, right? So this is just textbook stuff, right? So this is everything we're doing, we're just focusing on Offaly. If we get over them, then we'll look into a quarter-final. But you see it so often in the Championship, or one-off games, that the so-called favourite might be looking past it and they get caught on the hop. Boom. Andy McEntee will be just going, well done. That it's just
all he's missing is long grass there. That's
he's going to get put up a lot now over the summer for interviews.
Yeah. So then he's asked another question, which I thought was great, and he goes, if you're just going out to make up the numbers, there's no real point. I think he's asked about Dublin here. If you're just going out to make up the numbers, there's no real point. We're going out there. We want to challenge ourselves against the best. Put it up to them. If we get to play them in there, give it a go. This is Dublin and Croke Park. If we get to play them in there, give it a go. And we're going to be going into we're competing to win Leinster. We're not competing to try and make up the numbers and get knocked out and go through the back door. You've just looked ahead to a Leinster final, Conor. You're not going up to make up the numbers in a Leinster final, and you've got Offaly to worry about. This is all in the same interview, so you can't look past the first game, and then we have a chat about a potential Leinster final against Dublin. So all your good work. These Meath fellas, their heads are in the sky.
McGill overlooks Offaly.
McGill focusing on the Dubs. This is going on Offaly dressing room wall.
John Mahon hears this.
It's a classic. This was all in the same interview. No, we'll not say, cannot look past Offaly. Well, if we get Dublin in the Leinster final,
he might have just heard Trevor Giles and think, well, I can't come up with anything as ridiculous as what Trevor Giles.
I thought that was a good one. So there's some news coming out of Kildare, good and bad, mostly bad. Kildare are not getting anything easy. So Owen Doyle, their captain, is out with a muscle tear. They're waiting to see how bad that is, because obviously he's a big leader for them and they need him 100%. Daniel Flynn is home and he's kicking ball with his club, and Cian O'Neill has gone to meet him, and Daniel Flynn didn't take my advice last week, where I advised him 2 weeks ago, when you're at home, play, and you're going to start in the team, you'll have enough years when your county's going well and can get into Super 8s. Don't make the same mistakes I made and maybe you regret a year you could have played. You can do your club thing when you're bloody 33 or 34. So he's not listening to me, Dan, even though he does listen to the podcast. He's not going back in. So Cian O'Neill has been very fair about this, and he says, to be fair to the man, he was always honest and upfront about what his focus was for the year, but we said we'd keep in touch over the coming weeks. Myself, more than anyone, would love to see Dan back in a Kildare shirt, but you have to be fair to players as well. They're all adults and all humans. We'll keep in touch and see where he's at. So he's not closing the door at all. And then you have some positive news to hear. Niall Kelly, who's been away travelling, he's coming back. And he's interested in coming back for Kildare. So like, I mean, they'll have him back, and you know, that will offset Daniel Flynn. Not obviously not as good as Daniel Flynn, but still a very good player at the same time. So that's good. That's good news and bad news. And then I was reading that Kildare County Board have fixed championship matches for this weekend. The last weekend of the April for clubs, and then 2 rounds of the championship are to be played over the coming weeks, when Kildare are out on Saturday, May the 11th, right? So it's absolutely bizarre. So April for club. So then I asked somebody in Kildare what's going on here, and it's always been the way that Kildare would play their club championship. Even before the April for club, they'd play it in the last month of April. So they just decided not to change it when they're given the full month free. So Kildare inter-county players have played 4 league games throughout April, and now will play 2 rounds of club games, and they play Wicklow on May the 11th.
So what break did they get after the league? Maybe like 2 weeks or something?
Barely, yeah.
And then 6 games every consecutive week, and then 2 week break until the...
And then you wonder, will there even be a 2 week break? This weekend, and then they'll have championship next weekend if they want to get 2 rounds done. So
not even.
And then Wicklow the week after.
Wicklow the week after. And then you wonder why they lost to Carlow last year. I don't know how Keane O'Neill stands for that. Like,
and the players have to be made available for the second championship game a week before they play.
If it's championship, they have to be made available for that. Unless they played one last week, and this is the second week one. Might have that a little bit wrong, but my God, that's an awful lot for an inter-county manager to have to put up with.
It's very short preparation as well, just for, like, not even for one game, but for the whole championship. Like, you'd ideally want them all for at least 2-3 weeks going into the championship, not your biggest competition. That's very strange. I'd be worried if I was him. We always cry about managers that are calling off club games and stuff, but he should be even just pushing these forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. He should be putting his foot down. We know he put his foot down over Newbridge or nowhere. But, like, I mean, the gas thing is, and this is just my theory on it, I don't know whether this is true or not, but you know the old traditional GA way, well, what did we do last year? Lads? This is the time we play our matches. This is the kind of old nonsense you'd be hearing at these meetings. Well, I don't see why we have to change. So, like, I mean, it's always been done like that, so it just never changes. Yeah. Typical GA. How do, like, I mean, it's crazy stuff. I'm going to leave you on one from Keith Redmond, Sligo hurler. We don't talk about Sligo hurling very often on the show, and he's been asked about a tiered system, which I think is the right way to go, and it's obviously in hurling. So they won the Nicky Rackard, or they're starting their Nicky Rackard campaign this year, and they won the Laurie Marr last year. And he says, the Nicky Rackard competition is extremely beneficial to me personally and us as a team. The tiered system is brilliant as it allows us compete at a level where we can set realistic targets of winning an All-Ireland in Croke Park.
Amen.
I can't tell you how much I hate that quote.
Why?
No, why?
I was thinking there's no debate after this.
Jesus, why does everybody have a God-given right to have a realistic target of winning an All-Ireland? You don't get that. Winning an All-Ireland is the hardest thing to do. That's the top level. It should be hard. You don't just get a God-given right. Create 5 tiers like the hurling do.
Well,
and get to play at your level then and win an All-Ireland. It's not an All-Ireland. It's just a competition that we made up.
Is winning the Premier League, or will Manchester City, when they win the Premier League, be the best team in England, or are the best team in the Premiership?
I do get the tiered argument. I don't like it because I think we've got the league and it's a good, it's a good structure. Whatever.
It's a load of it's
but
in February and March.
But that argument, that's not. I don't think that's good logic. Somebody saying that he wants to win an All-Ireland, have a realistic target. That's not a reason to do. I want to win an All-Ireland, but it doesn't mean you get rid of every other team in the country and give me 3 games at my level to win an All-Ireland.
Conan.
That's not what you do. Like, you get to a level where you're good enough to push on.
So then,
but he gets to a level by promoting, by getting promoted through.
They were in the last tier. They won the Laurie Marr.
To win an All-Ireland isn't a reason to change.
But now he's going to have a desire to win the next tier that they go up to.
No, but like, it doesn't matter. Like, his desire to win an All-Ireland is not a good argument to change everything. Like, we all want to win an All-Ireland. Everybody's always wanted to win an All-Ireland.
He's saying that, right, is at a lower level to be given a realistic competition that you can win, more of a motivating factor than going out knowing that you can't win anything.
Yeah, but like we have that in the league. Like, that's what I'm saying. So the tier,
just acknowledge for a second that the league is practically a warm-up competition, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's our fault. I think that's our fault.
In February and March, played in awful conditions when teams are doing training and you can't predict results because you don't know what they're doing. So then you get to the summer months, and instead of having a tiered championship where everyone has a chance of getting to Croke Park, winning the level, Derry won Division 4, Westmeath won Division 3, all winning a competition, do you not think that's better than lumping them all in together and saying, well, except for 6 maybe, would have 0 chance of winning?
But do you want to make it 5 tiers so everybody has a chance of winning? Because if you make it 2 tiers, like if you have 16 teams in one tier, like 12 of them don't have a chance of winning an All-Ireland.
Yeah, no, but they would have a chance of getting to Croke Park in an All-Ireland quarter-final. I think if you're going with 2 16s and All-Ireland quarter-finals, every single team, okay, if you left out maybe London, Waterford, and you never know, Wicklow came from, or Leitrim came from nowhere, you're talking about getting to a quarter final now, which should be played in Croke Park. I would say you'd have 90% of the teams with a very, very I'd say 100% of the teams with a realistic aim of saying Croke Park is our target, lads, and All Ireland quarter final.
They might not have a chance in a given year, but 5 years down the line, if they put the work in, they'll have a better chance. You know what I mean?
That quote realistic target of winning an All Ireland, I just thought that it really sat uncomfortable with me, like, you know, because
so if you said winning a competition, would that sit better?
Yeah, but like that, it's just a separate competition. That's what we would be doing if we created all these tiers. Like,
okay, so it's the All Ireland is you've a problem with, because you say it's not an All Ireland.
Nobody has that privilege just to go and win like the big competition. Like, you don't just change everything because somebody wants to win something. Like Derry's a good example. Derry are Division 4. Nobody's crying about, like, you know, give us an All Ireland now that we can win at this level. They're just trying to get a better team.
But they're like a traditional big team. Like, they're embarrassed to be down there. We could go on all day trying to convince Conan here. He's got his Ulster Says No hat on, and he's not for turning, and that's it. Right, listen, we're going to leave it there. We'll be back with DJ Carey, and he's going to talk to us about football. Imagine that. So Louth beat the Kilkenny Miners by 8 points on Tuesday night in a much better showing than the 70-point hammering Kilkenny received the last time they competed at the grade. And their manager, Kilkenny legend DJ Carey, joins us on the line now. That's a big improvement, DJ, from 70 points down to 8. So you're doing something right.
Yeah, I suppose it is. It's it's a victory in some ways, I suppose, Wooly, in the sense that there was a bit of time and effort put into young fellas, as opposed to, you know, in fairness to management and players at that time, you know, it was only barely got together a week or so beforehand, and even there's one or two young fellas played that were subs on their own football team. So preparation was put in for this, and you know, we lost 4 or 5 young fellas to hurling this year. We had 34 still left, and that meant that, you know, you weren't at the last minute 6 or 7 or 10 lads being pulled off a football panel to go into the hurling. There was 6 guys or 5 guys, but that was fine because we had another 34 that were prepared to play. So that was great.
Right, okay. So you had enough fellas that you could cover it. And what is the policy with dual players, DJ? Like, that did you expect you were going to lose those 6? Was the game like they couldn't play both? That's not the policy in Kilkenny.
We had one chap that played the two. John McNamara is on both. No, not necessarily a policy per se, but I would have always felt followed along. And when we, you know, when I volunteered to do this, Willie, you know, and we had whatever 50 odd or 60 odd young fellas come in at the time. I said to them, lads, don't give up, football. Don't give up any sport until you have to give it up. If you have to make a decision eventually, that's fine. But don't think you're going to be on a Kilkenny minor team in 3 years' time. Or as it turns out, at that time, you were looking at under 18 being minors. So don't think you're going 4 years' time, you're guaranteed, because it doesn't work that way. So stick with football, stick with soccer, stick with rugby, athletics, whatever else you do, stay with it. And when you have to make a decision, make it. So in the last few weeks, we'll say a few lads decided that maybe hurling, because they were doing so much and inter-cert and or junior cert and all that was coming up, they were doing a lot, so they decided to go with one, and that was fine. That was absolutely no problem whatsoever. So myself and Richie Mulrooney, who's the hurling manager, with an understanding, and it's an okay situation.
All right, okay. I'm surprised to hear you're getting such big numbers, because, you know, obviously the perception of Kilkenny is that it's hard to get a football team together. So, you know, were you surprised you're getting 40 lads interested, or how did you come about getting that many fellas wanting to play?
Yeah, and to be honest, you know, 1 or 2 have joined recently or more recently within the last year. But the vast majority of those guys, Wooly, were with us since they were under 14.
Yeah.
You know, but we might have lost a few all along. And the nature of sport in general, no matter what sport you are, you're going to lose people. And that could be through lack of interest. That could be through, you know, the fact that they may think they're not going to make it. And it doesn't matter whether it's football in Kilkenny or hurling in Kilkenny. There's just a natural progression of fall off. But we were delighted that we had so many at that level and that age group, that stage. with it all along. And the difficulty then was, and even though, and I mean this in the greatest respect to our place, we may not have the best footballers in the country, but it was very hard then, to just pick 24 when we had 36 on a panel that were still ready and willing to play. So that was the difficult part, but I suppose that's our part that has to be done, and young fellas fully understand.
Yeah, you made the decision, just to give people the context of this, when Kilkenny lost to Louth, like I said in the intro, or lost to Wexford it was 17-20 to 1 point. So it was by 70 points they lost in the minors. Kilkenny pulled out of the minor then for 3 years. You took over the under-14s then in 2016, and now you've come up along through to minor with them at that stage. So you rang the county board chairman after that beating and wanted to get involved. Is that right?
That's right. That's right, Willie. Yeah.
Some people would think you were mad.
Well, sure, most people think I'm a bit mad in some ways anyway, but no, look, at the end of the day, I've always said it, and I've travelled the length and breadth of the country over years presenting medals and doing whatnot and doing some coaching, and I've been asked a fair bit to maybe even outside the county to be coaching. I've always said, everywhere, I've said I would prefer to be involved in tiddlywinks in my own county than being manager of somewhere else. It's purely and simply because there's an awful lot of work needs to be done, whether that's at under 12s in my own club or 14s, or whether that's a development squad in Kilkenny, or whether that's football. But from a pride point of view, I was very disappointed that that happened on that occasion. And with all due respect to Wexford and Wexford football, they're not Kerry, they're not Dublin.
Yeah.
They're not the strongest team either, but yet they were so far, and they were putting in two teams, as in hurling and football. So I rang the chairman and we had a discussion. He said, there's no point in we looking at the minor championship this year or next year, because young fellas are out of football since they were in primary school. They probably haven't played a whole lot of football, so maybe to try and get them as they've come out of primary school and continue on from there. And that's what we did. So we for the first year and a half, we went every second Saturday to combine it with football, to combine it with the hurling every other Saturday. And then for the last maybe year and a half, we've gone twice a week.
Why is there just such a lack of interest in the big ball in Kilkenny? I know you're not allergic to big balls because you play soccer and it's massively popular in Kilkenny, but for some reason Gaelic football, I know the obvious thing to say is because you're so good at hurling, but Cork are brilliant at hurling, and they have a football team, and Galway. Why is there such a lack of interest, or can this be, can it be fixed?
I don't know whether it can be fixed or not, Wooly, because at the end of the day, we are a reasonably small county. Now, you can go to your own county in Laois and say the very same, and you can provide two pretty top-class teams at every age group. So, sometimes there's a lack of will, so sometimes there's a lack of intent. But we've one football club in the county, being the rail yard. Everyone else hurls. I suppose when a championship comes around, there's management come in, and they I know one club in Kilkenny this year have blamed the Kilkenny junior team for them not being successful last year. So they have asked all their players, and I think they had 5 or 6 on the Kilkenny junior team last year, not to go and play football this year, which is what happened. So,
yeah.
It's a pity. There's plenty of good footballers. There's always been good footballers, with Dara Jive down in Australia playing football, with loads of lads that would have played with good counsel in Leinster Championship. They would be right on the border of Kilkenny, but there would be some of those Kilkenny players. Kierans College, I played for Kierans College and won a junior Leinster Championship, and I think we played in a junior Leinster final at that age. Now that's the goods of 30 odd years ago or more.
Yeah.
They're still, there was plenty of good football.
Yeah. Kierans College is an interesting one, because Brian Carroll is on the podcast here on the Hurling Show, and he went to Kierans, and I was surprised to hear Kierans actually do have a football team there, even though they're known for hurling. And he played on a team with Tommy Walsh and JJ Delaney and Jackie Turlin, or a good few other fellas, and they did really well.
Yeah, and my understanding, and I can remember vaguely way back, Kieran Joyce, who was a brilliant Kilkenny hurler, retired a year or two ago. Kieran Joyce, I think, almost beat Louth on his own in a Leinster Championship match in Drogheda or Dundalk, maybe around the early 2000s. So plenty of good football. Unfortunately, I suppose hurling is the big thing. Hurling is the number one. And I would say, and being honest, I would probably say, and this is not to be nasty about it, I would say that most people in Kilkenny didn't realise we were still training for a minor championship. Even though, because it's all the credit, or most of the credit here has to go to parents of those young fellas, because their clubs certainly wouldn't have overly promoted it. And I'm not saying they were totally against it, but it was the parents of those young fellas drove them to train, and they never got any expenses. We've never gone for food after training. We went after a match, and that had nothing to do with the county board too. We went to McDonald's. So within the last week, we've had a couple of meals after training, and that's it. So, and that's not to say it should happen. I'm just saying that, it's fine for me. I provided my service. I was happy to do it. Seamus Norris, Angelo Cullen, Thomas Rosper, Donald Carroll. We did it on the back of, if people wanted to play football, we were going to be there. We'd do our best. We're hurling people, all of us. So we might have done even a little bit better if we had actually a better football knowledge over the team. But you know what? We put in an effort. But the main credit has to go to the parents who have driven those young fellas to training, because it's easy travel to minor hurling training, under 20 hurling training, senior or development squads in Kilkenny. That's an easy thing because there's a badge of honour.
Yeah.
But driving from Moonkind to Kilkenny or Pilltown, the most southern parts or furthest away, up training on miserable wet evenings on a miserable Saturday at 10 o'clock when we could get a pitch. That's not the glamour side of it. And it's not that we all want to be in it for the glamour side, because if we were, you wouldn't take any part in the GA except the senior team in your county. So, they have to take a huge amount of credit for this.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. Come here, you said that you're a hurling man, but at under 12, we all know you're a hurling man. You're a complete legend of the hurling game. But at under 12 level, that wasn't the case. I was reading that at under 12, the footballers and the hurlers were playing on the same day, and you chose football because your heroes were Pat Spillane, the Bomber Liston, Mikey Sheedy, and all those kind of people. There'll be a lot of hurling snobs listening to this, and they'll be melting here in this, DJ, that the great DJ Carey once chose football over hurling.
Yeah, that's right, and that's the truth of it. I was a massive, and still obviously would love to carry football, even though I'd be a great admirer of Dublin as well now. But at that time, I grew up with Kerry winning the 3 in a row, and then going for the 5 in a row at the time. Yeah. So Seamus Darby, I cried when Seamus Darby scored that goal all those years ago, because I thought it was from Kerry. I didn't realise the difference when you're a young fella. So I grew up, and there was a great competition back then, and I don't even know whether it still goes on, where it was called inter-cities competitions. Right. I know we played Limerick and Louth and Dublin and in teams. I don't know how Louth qualified for inter-cities, but there's an inter-cities competition going on, and I was given the choice of hurling for Kilkenny or playing football, and I chose to play football.
Right, and what stage did that turn back around then towards hurling, when you just became brilliant at hurling?
I'd say fairly quick after we got a couple of hostings. But the first time I ever played in Croke Park, Woolley, I played against Dublin in a football match, and we got well beaten. But I know I scored 2 goals the same day. It was an under 12 game in Croke Park. It's amazing. Little small things that you'd remember. But certainly, my very first playing occasion was playing football for the Kilkenny under 12 team.
Right, that's brilliant when you hear little anecdotes like that. I was reading another thing, DJ, where this is how ingrained hurling is in the young fellas in Kilkenny. is that in hurling, this is a quote from you, you said, in hurling you try to drive the ball as far as it will go, and a lot of Kilkenny footballers do that too. So we're looking at changing that mindset. And I was thinking of just the young fellas at under 14 having played mostly hurling were, you know, just kicking it up almost like 1970s football, because that's how you play hurling, and they'd never got coached. Do you know what I mean? The differences.
I suppose I'm just looking at television a lot, or being at a few football matches. Would you believe it? I've never been, and this is probably a slight on me, but it's the way intercounty has gone now.
Yeah.
I've never been to a football training session in another county. You know, so now most people wouldn't be to another hurling county football session either, because they wouldn't be let in. So we were basing our training on what they do from the television, or being at a few matches, what they do it. So my thing with the fellas was, you know, with the young fellas, we get comfortable on the ball, and if that means when you're going forward, if you have to turn around and come back and give it to someone behind you, that was fine. No, there's no issue. So the most important thing was to try and get comfortable, and we hold on to the ball, and we hold it, and we work it up, and then try and get it into a position where we can take a score. Now, some of our kicking wouldn't be absolutely magnificent, to be totally honest. But having said that, I would imagine if you were talking to the Louth manager today, or even some people that were there, they'd say, you know what, Louth deserved to win, which they fully did. Now their keeper made a couple of very good saves, but you know, we've no arguments. But I would say that they would be mildly surprised with some of the skill level and some of the play that we produce. And as I say, that is down to the players, because remember, on top of everything else, it certainly wasn't the glamour thing for our players to be doing, was to be playing football. So like, you're on a hiding to nothing. It's always no footballers in Kilkenny. Oh well, at the senior hurling level they're not good enough at the moment, but realistically, at any level, you have players to play. You are good enough to compete. You are good enough to win. And sometimes it's a mindset. And for us, the mindset was to get it right. We don't kick the ball away. We hold on to it. And you know what? If we make a mistake and they go down and they get a goal out of that mistake, well, we'll kick the ball out and we'll go again. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's the thing, and not have them bogged down. Make it enjoyable, really, and teach them catching, kick, the basics. I read another great quote from you: is do the simple things, you said the Kilkenny hurlers play that way. That's by doing the simple things better than anyone else. The exceptional things are only very rarely done. And that's very well put, because that's pretty much a fact.
Yeah, well, I've often, and this is not to say I'm a great fella or was a great fella, my time was done, Wooly, but we've all done something in a game, or maybe done something once in every 10 games that looked absolutely phenomenal. And in realistic terms, we've probably never practiced it, we've probably never done it, we've never had an occasion to do it. But we have an occasion to do rise a ball 10 times in a game, or catch a ball 10 times, or strike a ball, and they're the simple things. And it's the same in football, or it's the same in any other sport. That you've got to get the good things. You've got to get better at them. The simple things. You can't ever do enough of the simple things and get good at them and get better at them and get better again. And then when the odd occasion comes along, which is a very odd occasion, well, then that's fine. Please God, you have it in the background that you can do it. But and that's what I would be a great believer. But I would go around even hurling coaching, and you'd maybe go to places and you'd be asked, well, you know, should we be moving now? Should all the forwards be moving in different positions? And you know, the centre forward here. And my answer is, well, can you strike the ball into that position? And if you strike it into that position, can your player catch it in that position, or can he rise it? Can he lay it off? Can he hand pass that ball if it comes along? So there's no point in having all the tactics if you don't actually have if you don't have the basics, and that's what I would be a great believer in.
Yeah, no, listen, it sounds like smart talking to me. Come here, the hurling fans on the show will kill me if I don't ask you about Kilkenny hurlers. Very competitive Leinster Championship this year, obviously with Dublin after stepping up, you know, to the plate after last year. So we've, maybe no disrespect to Carey, you have 4 teams with not too much between them.
No, there's not. There's not. Galway probably would be a little bit concerned as with Joe Canning. Now I know Johnny Glynn and
Cooney's back.
Conor Cooney are both back, are on their way back. So that will be a big boost. Joe Canning will be a huge loss. Kilkenny, all teams have a few injuries at the moment. Kilkenny have. And I would imagine Brian Cody in his training at the moment from a Kilkenny point of view is saying that, people are saying we haven't the hurlers. We haven't as good enough hurlers as we had in the past. We'll never have that. And, you guys are the fellas that they're actually criticising. So, it's huge motivation for the likes of Kilkenny. Wexford have laid low. Wexford, I think, are dangerous enough. Carlow, it's a huge occasion for Carlow. It'll be difficult, but I think if you want to be anywhere in any sport, you want to be playing at the top table. Now, whether you win or lose, you're certainly learning. And I can't see Carlow coming out of the group, and I don't mean that to be a criticism. It's just reality, and if to do well, fair dues to them. I think Dublin. I think the Dublin Kilkenny match in Nolan Park is a massive one for Kilkenny. I think we would be in an awful lot of trouble, and it's a very good Dublin side, very good panel. The Flint are very good, certainly in the National League semi-final. So I think that's the big one for Kilkenny, and if they were to win that, they can go on and qualify. If they don't win that, I would find or see it very difficult to get out of the group.
Right, okay, that's different. Who do you, or it would be difficult for them? Who do you think will win the All Ireland?
Well, I suppose contrary to my own colleague, I see Limerick as being the team to beat. Last year, Willie, I was I do a column with the Mirror newspaper when I during the championship, and all along I was it was who was going to beat Limerick. If the team could beat Limerick, I didn't think they would win the All Ireland, but I thought the team that would beat them or come out eventually would be the team that would win it, and they went down and down. And I think they've just gone from strength to strength. Now, having said that, that's the league, and there'll be a huge amount of confidence still in an All-Ireland winning team throughout the league. So, but they look to have played just great hurling. They look to be just fully together, and they would be very, very hard team. So they would be my favourite team to win it.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, DJ, thanks very much for giving us your time, and keep the football flag flying in Kilkenny. Do me a favour and do that for me.
Well, we want a few more, lads. Well, it's like everything else, and I don't mean to hold you on the show, but it's like everything else. Eventually people like myself and the lads involved, we need a break eventually from sport to be able to take a year off or two off. So it's actually what's coming next after us is most important as well. Okay, thanks very much, DJ. Talk to you again. Thanks, Wally. All right, great stuff from DJ there. We'll be back next week and we'll talk to you then. Good luck.